So I know visitor comments are up next, but we will do robotics first. And then if there are any visitor comments, we'll go to that.
Because they will surely be talking about what a great job the robotics team in their comments. So
If not, I think there's a robot that has something to say.
that's right. So Mr. Peperato, thank you. I will tell you, our robotics team had extraordinary success this year.
Absolutely.
And it's really much a function of the great dedication of the students and their leadership. We're so proud as a board to have you with us tonight. And so, Mr. Peperato, thank you for your efforts, and the stage is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm John Piperato. I'm a math and computer science teacher at the high school and a mentor for the robotics team. I'm actually going to turn over to Brandon, who's also a mentor and going to have a more active role in the future years here to introduce himself. And then the team will have a quick presentation on the robot, and they'll show you what's going on there. So.
I'm Brandon Mayan. I'm one of the mentors and co-advisors of the robotics team. It's really great. I was on the team since I was a freshman in high school, and that was 8 years ago. So coming back, continuing to help out, allowing the students to have the same opportunity that I did was really great. The students really worked endlessly from the beginning of the school year to the end of the school year. We build our competition robot from January to February and compete in March, but from August to December, we're acclimating new members, we're trying new things, we're learning different mechanisms, and it's just a great opportunity for our students.
All right, hi everyone. My name is Ellie Corbino. I'm a senior and the president of the robotics team. So I'm going to start off by talking a little bit more about what we do specifically at robotics, and then also, what led us to build this specific robot this year. So, there we go. So we are a team of around 30 kids, and we obviously have to design, build, and program this robot for this year. But each year we also have to fundraise and make sure we're doing community outreach to make sure that we are creating a sustainable team, and then also so that we have enough money to compete and build our robot, to make sure we have parts for everything, things like that. So this year, like every year, we get a new game challenge. So each year we have to build a completely new robot starting in January. So at the start of every single game, there's an autonomous period, which essentially means that the first 15 seconds are completely pre-programmed. So our drivers and our drive team is completely hands-off, and the robot has to score pieces and move around the field completely pre-programmed. So for this year specifically, our task was to pick up cones and cubes, which you have one of each there, and you could either pick them up from the ground or from a shelf on the field. And then once we had these game pieces inside of our robot, we had to transport them and place them on pegs and different platforms to get points. And then at the end of the match, we actually had to go up on this little balancing platform with other robots to gain points at the end of the match.
All right, so hello, my name is Keller, and I'm a programmer on the team. So every year we participate in 2 district events. So our first one this year was at Springside Chestnut Hill Academy, where we placed 11th overall, and we were the first pick for the 5th Alliance. Our second event this year was at Warren Hills, where we placed 3rd overall, and we were the captain of the 2nd Alliance. And then we also won the Quality Award, which celebrates robot robustness and design. So that got us into Lehigh, which is regionals, which consists of 60 of the best teams from 3 states, which are Pennsylvania, Delaware, and New Jersey. And we placed 5th overall there, which is a pretty big deal. And we also captained the 4th Alliance. So that performance got us into Worlds. We were placed into the Archimedes division, which was a really tough division this year. But despite that, we placed 43rd out of 77, which is really good. And Kate will tell you a little bit more about our experience at Worlds.
Hi, my name is Kate. I'm the vice president this year. So for us, Worlds is basically an opportunity to go to different conferences that teach us about leadership, community outreach, which is important to us because it means we can win awards, and careers in STEM. We also have the opportunity to visit different college-related things so we can kind of see what we're interested in after high school. Over 30,000 students attend Worlds each year. And in our division alone, there were teams from Turkey, Israel, Canada, the U.S., and Mexico. We also had an amazing opportunity to visit NASA while we were there.
The team will also work to, hi, I'm Christian, I'm the business lead. Our team works to spread STEM throughout the community. this by showcasing our team and our robot. So, for example, we'll present the robot at Coopersburg Community Day and let the entire community see what we do, what it's all about, and talk about the program and try and spread it a bit more. We'll also host an hour of code at the intermediate school, which will give younger students an introduction to computer science. Liberty Bell STEM Night, we demonstrated a robot like we are going to do here tonight, and that was really wonderful to see all of the younger students really get excited about STEM and go, wow, look at the robot move. And it's pretty great. And we're going to do something similar later this year at the middle school STEAM Expo. Growth-wise for membership, this year we saw about 40% female student enrollment, which was much higher than previous years. So it's great to see. We're also trying to get more women in STEM. And this year as well, graduating seniors, all of them will be going on to pursue STEM careers at top universities, which is also continuing from last year. We had the same 100% of seniors going on to pursue STEM careers.
Hello, I'm Gwen. I help work with the build team, and this is Liam, our build team captain. So I'm just going to talk about what a robot actually does because I know it looks pretty cool. So we have, so the goal of the game was to get these two pieces that you can see here. Liam and Keller are going to demonstrate that for you. And then we spit them out on poles for the cones and then these little shelves for the cubes. The arm also goes up in order to do this because they're about this high at the highest of the poles. And then our drivetrain, which is the wheels on the robot, allows us to move in any direction without moving the robot. This is called Swerve Drive. It's one of the newest and best drivetrains out there. And then finally, I'll talk a little bit about our programming. So we have some preset programming, preset heights, preset autonomous. As I mentioned, the autonomous is a 15-second period in which we can score pieces that is completely pre-programmed. This year we had a really good autonomous. We could score multiple pieces. And I'll show you some of the presets that allows our drivers to more easily score and be more efficient. As you can see, we have a couple different preset heights. Keller just presses the button instead of having to manually move the robot. That's all I have to say. If you guys have any questions, feel free. If not, thank you for your time.
Now, when we go to the competitions, it's not just our robot. There's a teaming situation, and sometimes that benefits us, and other times it may not. Could you describe when you're in the competition the idea of your teaming and how it may help or how it may not? I remember last year it did not, right? If I recall. So could you describe that aspect of the competition?
Yeah, so the game is in a 3v3 format, and so for the qualification matches, it's all randomized who you're teamed up with. And so you get a certain number of matches that you play, and you won't know who you're paired up with until you're like literally day of, normally like an hour or two before competition starts. And so we work with the other teams, and we also have somebody in charge of strategy, Aditya, he's unfortunately not here, where we go and we work with the other teams before a match. So if we see, hey, we have a match in 20 minutes, we'll go up and we'll talk to the strategy team from another team that we're working with, and we sit with boards or an iPad, and we sit and we coordinate how we're going to play the game. But we also have to collect data on the other teams and how well they're performing so that we know going into those discussions, all right, this team's really good at hybrid, or they don't score a couple pieces. Let's just say, just make sure you're out of our way, or, like, can you guys stick to defense, or doing X, Y, and Z. If we're paired with a really good team, we're going to sort of let them steer the conversation. And we do that through scouting. So we have a lot of the younger members sit in the stands, and they watch every match, and they collect data on all of the different teams so that we're prepared to go into those strategy discussions. But then also during alliance selection, so when you enter the playoffs, you get to pick your own teams. But to ensure that we're making the best pick, we have to go throw off that data and make sure we mesh with whatever robot we're picking and things like that. So it's definitely a big part of the game is like the strategy. And sometimes you do get unlucky. Last year, we got very unlucky. We had like statistically like the worst is like second to worst schedule at the competition. But that's why scouting is so important because a lot of times teams may get bad schedules, and you hope that people are watching to see like, hey, we're doing stuff. We're not just like our other robots died on the field. Maybe that happens a lot. So that is a big part of the competition specificcally.
New England Patriots have nothing on us when it comes to scouting and all that.
That was smart.
Well, if you guys don't have any other questions, I just want to reiterate how much we appreciate the support from. Oh, sorry, I didn't even see that.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to say I apologize for not being able to make it this year. I was there last year and I've seen your work, and it's pretty impressive. Everything that you're working on here is directly related to engineering and STEM in professional careers. What programming language are you using? Okay. Great. And then also servo motors, I guess, right? Or mostly?
Mainly
Okay, brushless DCs. Yep. And then the other thing that's pretty interesting, I'd like to hear a little bit about what you need to do to prepare for this. You get specifications, right, that give you all the guidelines and the rules of the contest for this year. Talk a little bit about that and how challenging that may or may not be.
We always hold, usually in the library, this sort of year we did in the library, there's a live stream that shows off what the actual game is. So we get the whole group together and we watch this live stream and see what the game is. And our first step is to just brainstorm ideas, right? After we brainstorm, we really have to look at the specifications of the game. So one of the big ones this year was that you can't extend past 48 inches out of your frame perimeter, which drastically decreases the length of the arm. So we look at all of these different parameters, and it really narrows down the options that we have from our brainstorming. I know we were looking at an elevator this year, which just moved the arm itself up and down to decrease the arm's length, but we did end up doing the math, and this arm did actually work. But it's definitely hard to find weight restrictions and find the most optimal robot in the game, as well as reading the game. That's a really hard part. Probably the hardest part, in my opinion, is actually figuring out what's going to be the best strategy. It may seem simple. Oh, you're just picking up cubes and cones. Easy, right? Well, we saw at Worlds a lot of teams that read the game way better than we did and designed something that we could have designed, but we just didn't think about it because we thought that this design would be better or this design would be better.
Well, I have to say I'm pretty impressed, and there are a lot of facets in everyday life that you, especially in the business world, that you're using between marketing, promotion, leadership, teamwork, engineering, math, right? Maybe you could just say a few words about what you did in the math realm, and then problem solving and prototyping, right? So it's the whole package. So I think it's a great experience for you, and you're going to be able to use it going forward in your careers.
When we were figuring out the geometry of the arm, there's definitely a lot of math and CAD involved to make sure that everything would line up and that we would actually be at like the proper heights and distances to score. We also did like math to figure out the center of gravity of a robot. That was really important this year because you want a low center of gravity. That way you're not prone to like tipping and you can move faster. So that was something that we definitely considered. I think when they and Liam, they put the robot into CAD software and they figured out like where our center of gravity was.
Yeah, for our chain and gear ratios, we also have to look at how much power we actually need to make this heavy arm move, which we found out was a lot. But math certainly doesn't solve all of our problems. If it did, we would be done in a week. But I build a lot of the robot, and there's definitely times where like this will work. It doesn't. And you have to find a different solution. For example, the shaft here that you see in the middle that actually holds the arm on it, it rotates with the arm. We originally used a 1/2-inch steel hex shaft, which is in the shape of a hex, and it was pure steel, and we ended up bending it because of how much force. So we went to this more structurally stable. It's called a spline shaft. It kind of looks like a stop sign in octagon. And there's many more things that we do when we're prototyping and building, where we're like, oh, we thought this would work, but it actually didn't.
But yeah, I just want to add one more thing that was pretty cool. So see, this thing that comes out of the arm right here, right? So this is called a counterbalance, which essentially this is a constant force spring, so it helps raise the arm up, so it helps reduce the load from the motor. So there's a lot of like math involved figuring out exactly like what force we needed, because like you have to figure out the torque on the arm and all of that, and it was a really interesting process. Um,
I had a quick question about where do you physically, you're talking about a course and an obstacle course, and when you're building this, I know that, and some of your faces look pretty familiar from the green car at the middle school, maybe. Yes, I thought so. Gwen, good to see you again. So I know the physical space the green car at the middle school uses to kind of build and execute and everything, 'cause I think that's where I met Gwen. And I'm wondering here in the high school, where do you set up a course? Where's the space that you physically use here? Because it seems like, I mean, a classroom isn't going to let you execute an obstacle course or plan. So I was just wondering, what resources do you use? I've never seen this in the school building. Where do you go with it? What do you use it? How do you prep in the physical space to build and to execute that obstacle course? Because I've never seen an obstacle course for a robot at the high school. So
Yes. So Gosler, he runs the engineering program, and there's a shop across from his door, if you know where Gosler's
yeah.
room is. And it was a wood shop, but we kind of converted it. There's drill presses and all sorts of machines to machine the robot. We also have a rollable carpet, so we don't destroy our robot wheels on the hard cement. And we roll it out, and we build all the gate pieces. So we, every night set up that whole course. To move everything around. But additionally, Palisades, Team 103, they also have a team. They have a whole whole obstacle course already pre-built, and they allow teams like us to go and actually practice on a full-scale field because our shop just isn't big enough to set up a whole field. So that's where we do a lot of our autonomous practice because you get the whole thing as opposed to just the small portions like we have in our shop.
So you set up and tear down here in the small portions in our shop, but you have a partner with a neighboring school district who has a lot, I guess, continual setup that you can just go. Great. Thank you. Thanks for that answer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys again for letting us come, and thank you for all the support. We really appreciate it. They couldn't do without you, so thank you.
Congratulations on the great season.
Thank you.
And then I guess to go with that, one of the major obstacles that we do face is we get the game specifications. We try to build this robot. Rapid prototyping with the machinery that we have. We just don't have the space for some of the machinery that we could have. Having the practice field, we're able to build small, the main elements usually on how to test placing the pieces on. We don't have any dedicated space or room to have like a full-size field, which Palisades that they mentioned, they have a whole barn that's like the size of a small gym, and then they build an actual real the full deal field to do full drive testing.
No,
I have a
thanks. That's why I was
question about
asking.
that.
That's why I was asking about that. Thank you for,
Yep.
that's kind of why we like having kids here to talk about what is successful and how else could we look to improve in the future. And that's exactly kind of what I was asking about, because you guys do a great job. Thanks. Go ahead. I
So-
didn't mean to interrupt.
I just on that note have materials or space been requested before so that it's known that we have these needs so that it can move up, with respect to the budgeting process. And I mean, I'm not even sure if we have the space in a location that would work for us. If you know of any, so this is kind of that opportunity, I think, to voice such concerns in this forum, of course, so that, if we can help, I mean, obviously having to put it together and take it down every evening is a lot when you've got students that I'm sure are very busy with respect to other activities and academics, I'm sure. So, perhaps we could look into that when it comes to budgeting and
Yeah,
space
I mean, it would be super
constraints.
helpful. Our kids are here Monday through Thursday, 6 to 9 p.m. With the mentors that volunteer to help out. So it's a lot of hours. And yeah, we have to spend probably about 30 minutes or so breaking down and putting it together every night. So it is a big time chunk. I mean, we do have a really good space in the wood shop where we're at now. We could definitely make maybe a few modifications to that space that would make it a little bit better. But I don't really know of any other spaces in the high school that aren't being utilized that would, the problem is we would want the field to be set up permanently almost in a sense, or at least half of the field. And that's the difficulty because there's not really that type of space in the high school right now. Like Brandon said, I mean, I know Palisades has a pole barn that they built back in the early 2000s, and that's for the robotics team. They're the only people that use that space. It's connected to their wood shop. But I mean, inside, I don't really know of any space that we could utilize. The ceilings have to be, tall too, because like sometimes we have to shoot things.
Have you ever, I mean, have we ever looked into potential partnerships, for example, we have local universities that obviously have an interest in STEM, and then businesses. I mean, we do have businesses that obviously are engineering related. So, maybe that would be something that we could work on if we have space constraints, we have them. So, I mean, just some thoughts.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, we reach out. We have a whole business team actually, and the kids reach out to different companies and ask for sponsorships and additional cash flow because it does cost a lot of money, even with the support that we get from you guys. So yeah, we definitely have a lot of connections in the community. So all right, thank you guys again. We really appreciate it. Have a great night. Thank you.
Okay. No. All right. No visitor comments. So superintendent updates.
Better safe than sorry. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lissette, and thank you, Mr. Suma. As we look on the agenda, I want to begin my comments by noting it is Teacher Appreciation Week, and we are so very grateful. I see Amy's here. You actually, I think you're actually up on the screen here too. We see you. Yes, we see you're following right along. But I do want to begin. I do want to begin by saying how fortunate and in fact blessed we are with our teaching staff. We're going to talk about a lot of the good things that are happening in the district tonight, and all of them in one way or another come back to the dedication and the devotion of our teachers. So on behalf of those that you represent, Amy, thank you for all the amazing work that is being done here. I have a little bit of this in the presentation, but I have an exciting announcement, and that is that our board, over the course of probably the 18 months that I have been here, at one point or another, have been talking about the value of a foundation and how a foundation might be something that could increase opportunity and provide funding for ways that our typical budget might not. And I'm very, very pleased to announce that a group of community members have come together and after about a year's worth of planning, officially launched a foundation last week. And so I just want to put up their website, and we could see more of this later, but Southern Lehigh now has SLEF, the Southern Lehigh Education Foundation. Many board members and many in the community will remember that the Southern Lehigh Education Foundation was in existence and did well for many years. It fell a bit dormant in the recent past, and this group of people came together, worked with great cooperation with the remnant leaders of the SLEF Foundation. They transferred the legal entity over to their group, and we now have a group of very dedicated community members who are very much focused on raising money in support of the district. And so I think it's a very, very positive announcement. Their website is very well done. They have great hopes and aspirations. They are very independent of the school district. They are their own 501c3. They hope to develop long-term relationships with their donors. And they also look to become more and more engaged with the people here in the school district, from the Board of Education all the way through the students. So I view that as a very, very positive outcome, and we're excited about what the future holds for the Education Foundation.
I had a couple of questions or comments about the foundation, which I'm thrilled to see get started back up. It can really do some wonderful things, and I did look at the website, and I think you've got some really good people on it, ready to go to work. But you said that there is no district connection; it's its own entity, its own thing, and you've been meeting privately with people from the foundation, I don't know, for like 9 or 10 months. You went to their launch party and stuff, and the board didn't know anything about any of that, which is what it is. But my concern is that I didn't really see any kind of checks and balances. I know that you had told us that they at this time didn't really want any board or administration um, input. But at this point, it appears as though because there is no connection and no informing of the school board members and such, that you are the only link between this private source of potentially thousands of dollars and the school. And because you're also the only link, I'm curious who is giving them input, where are they getting their ideas and everything from. I see that they have a president, vice president, treasurer, secretary. Are there minutes taking during the meetings? Can we see the minutes? um, I was also just my opinion, a little concerned. Of course, they should be on our website and they should absolutely have a presence. And again, I believe that this is a wonderful foundation. But the way it looks and it's featured on the website, if I didn't know better and I went on there because I wanted to donate, I would think that I was donating directly to the school. It doesn't look like a separate entity in any way. It looks like it's directly affiliated and part of the school. Those were my opinions and concerns there.
Well, I'll try to address them. I will say that I have gone to what I believe was great lengths over the course of the last year to keep the board posted that this was an activity that I was engaged in and received nothing but support from the board, never a word of caution, never a word of concern. And, and I think that and again, people may have different perceptions of this, but I think I can go back on a number of occasions and say this was something that not only was I doing, but the board encouraged me to do, the district to do, and in fact had periodic questions as to why progress wasn't occurring quickly enough. So that's my thought as far as keeping the board informed. And any board member who had any particular question would have been very happy to try to respond. All right. So the second aspect that you ask is related to district involvement. And what I will tell you is that by necessity, um, a private foundation, in order for them to achieve the tax benefits, is a 501c3 organization. And one of the very important components of the foundation is to remain, and I think the IRS term is arm's length from the organization that they support, because it would be inconsistent with what and I'm not a lawyer, but inconsistent what I understand the tax regulations to be is for the district to control, all right, or to have significant input or voting into the operation of an independent organization that's set up to support it. So there are checks and balances in place that would not exist if we were able to assert some influence over the foundation, or if the foundation were able to assert some influence over us. And I'll tell you the two major check balances would be, number one, we cannot go to the foundation and say, we want you to do this or that, right? We can ask them to say, hey, here's some programs that we would like you to fund. But conversely, and I think this might address some of your concerns, the foundation cannot come to us and say, you must do this or that. We want to, I'll give you just a kind of a silly example, but I've been working with the foundation for 17 years in my previous district, and they came to us and said, we want to build a greenhouse, which we did, and was the biggest mistake ever, because the heat and all the stuff, the cost of the greenhouse was so high, it far exceeded the money that went in. So the ultimately any money that comes in from the foundation should be approved by the Board of Education, and any influence that the foundation wishes to have is up to them. So I think there's some really good checks and balances in place. And as far as promoting it on the website, I think it's a really good thing for us to have it on the website. Perhaps that confusion exists. I could certainly raise it with them. The foundation has said they very much want to be responsive to community concerns. They have a contact us aspect of their website where people can put in comments, and I know they very sincerely and very earnestly will review those comments and get back to people and respond accordingly, recognizing that they are an independent organization, just as perhaps the United Way or some other 501c3 may be.
I have a question about that, the same topic. So in the past, and it preceded my time on the board, when we had an education or we had a foundation, um, didn't we have a staff member in the central office that actually worked to get the, I think they were part of fundraising efforts, right?
Correct.
So the person that was in the central office did that as part of their personal giving back to the community.
Okay.
There was no relationship
No official.
of her official role in the school district to what that individual did as part of SLEF. And it has been some time, but SLEF assisted in requests that came in from teachers.
Okay.
Some of the individuals who were on the board at the time were teachers themselves. And while the board approved the money coming in and where the expenditure was going, there was no direct connection between SLEF and any of the district administration. But there was a coordination of a request list of different things for classroom.
And how was that coordinated, I guess? Like, what was the channel? Because I think that all of this is a great thing. I
Mhm.
mean, I agree, but I guess I'm confused as to how, I get that there's going to be a conduit for community members, obviously, to reach out to the foundation, which is great, so they can voice their concerns, and potentially we can get funding for projects that the district would not be otherwise be able to afford. But I guess I guess what's a little gray for me is how concerns, if any, from the district would go to the educational foundation, or let's say a request comes in from the community to SLAF, and they have to, of course, ask, I would imagine, somebody from the district to see whether there's something in the work, so it's not redundant, right? So there's got to be a back and forth somewhat.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is this a mechanism by which, I'm just going to take the performing arts because I've been beating that dead horse. Could somebody say, hey, we've been trying to get funding for performing arts for some time. Budgetary limits and constraints are in place, although we do have a fund balance. I'm just going to throw that out there once more. But how would the district, I guess, potentially, because
Right.
the connection is there, whether or not we call it an arm's length, the connection has to be there so that there can be effective communication, and you can actually get a project done. It doesn't make sense to completely
Right.
cut one arm off. So I'm just curious how that would work in real time.
Sure. And let me say first and foremost that I work for the Southern Lehigh Board of Education, period. Right? End of sentence. And so as this partnership, or whatever we want to call it, evolves, certainly I anticipate the foundation leadership adjusting as time goes based upon experience. And certainly to the extent that we as a school district want to formalize or describe or put to policy how we interact with the foundation, or it's just a matter of trial and error and feedback as we go. I think everybody in this is acting in extreme good faith. And like, for example, we came up just on our own with some very small little projects. Like, for instance, in the back of our mind, we think esports would be really cool to have here in Southern Lehigh. And so we suggested that, hey, maybe esports would be something, right? We spoke about maybe some students, we're going to talk tonight about the dual enrollment, CLEP exams type of thing. And maybe we thought that we might consider for students who might be struggling to come up with cost for credits or payment for an exam, there might be a little support from the foundation. So again, we're not at building level, fund balance level discussions yet. Maybe that will come someday. But at the moment, to the extent that the board is comfortable with it, I've been a liaison and I'm happy to convey. But again, our discussions have been small with respect to requests.
Yeah.
Mike,
I think
I
part
just
of-
want to say thank you very much. I know this is something I've been requesting. I think I was probably one of those board members who was asking, why isn't this happening quicker? And I think you have done a great job of communicating. And I understand it took time to transition from prior administration to the current administration of the board. I also think it's important. And looking at other school districts, Bill, you've mentioned other districts, and some other district foundations do have, one of their board members is a sitting board member from the school board, and I think it's, for the community to understand that this foundation, one, because of some of political turmoil and how the Board of Education can change every couple years, they wanted to form some long-term relationships and don't want to be at the whim of whoever is in the majority at the time. And I think that speaks volumes to yourself, to Mr. Zellner, who is the board president, and I think helping to organize this, how they do want to keep that some of the issues that happens on school boards away from their initiative, which I think is education. And I appreciate you being the liaison
Right.
currently, and like you said, I think it's a
Yeah, and I don't think it's just school board. They don't want me on the board,
Yeah.
right? I mean, so that's
Yeah, no, it's-
that's clear, right? So like again,
it makes perfect sense to me, the apolitical nature
Yeah.
of this education foundation.
and I don't want to
Can
be
I-
on
Yeah.
their board.
Can I
Yeah.
ask a question or a suggestion maybe then? Since, I think it's helpful to both the district as well as the foundation to have some connection that exists for obvious
Oh yeah,
reasons.
sure.
Maybe it would help if, um, I don't know how like we could establish with the board of SLEF perhaps some type of quarterly like wish list or just some kind of that's agreed upon potentially by the entire board or discussed at least openly in front of the public. Um, it's an idea. It's not going to tell them what to do, obviously, because they're an independent organization. But maybe it would help to at least have people feel like it's being done in the open since it does involve the district itself. And just throwing it out there, it could obviously be shaped into a better form than what I just said, but maybe it would help so that it doesn't seem like it's so closed.
I think part of Mike, you and I had a conversation, and I appreciate you taking the call about calling you up to ask about this. And I think part of probably what you're hearing tonight is the board. I was one of those folks who was asking you, like, why isn't this progress? Why can't we, get going on this more quickly? Why are we not hearing specific, updates about the next step? And now I realize that it's because you were working on our behalf behind the scenes. And I think part of what you're hearing tonight is that I think it did come to a surprise to all of us sitting up here. And you and I talked about this. It just came as a surprise of, oh, this happened overnight. And just kind of adjusting to, okay, so now this thing we thought was on the horizon that we're planning for and maybe we'll eventually get to suddenly is here and in our laps without that preparatory, kind of phase of getting used to it. So I appreciate the conversation that you and I had about, I've been working on this diligently and throughout all these months. I think it just came as a surprise. And some of the questions about that progress, I think I understand why you were working behind the scenes on it, but I think that board members wanting the progress and not hearing, now we get it. I think it's probably just an adjustment period of understanding what was going on during that time. But the only other thing I wanted to back to Dr. Serene, and also Dr. Wyatt made a great point about the board, the SLEF board, not wanting to be subjected to the political turmoil and the ups and the downs and the flow of whatever might occur as board members can come and go every 2 years. That makes a lot of sense. I over my course of being a board member on this board for many years, I've attended conferences and educational forums, and I've talked to other board members in other districts. And what they found, and what PSBA conference and further education for board member conferences have said, is the most successful, lucrative foundations have the kind of key everyone recommends is having someone who is a paid staff member, be it part-time or part-time duties, or somehow financed through that foundation, that resides and is housed in central office, but is keeping the 501c3 the separate entity and everything. But the most successful, Parkland, for instance, has a very successful foundation, and they partner with, like, we have our senior citizens dinner whenever we have a play here. Parkland's is catered every year by Outback. Like, that's a nice thing to offer through the Education Foundation. I'm not trying to set a goal. We're not Parkland, we're not that big. I get it, but things like that. The most successful. There are other school districts I'm blanking on throughout the Commonwealth who have had staff members who are their salaries completely covered by the Education Foundation.
Yeah.
But there is a true tie and a true partnership. And the one thing so perhaps that would avoid the political ups and downs and turmoil, but and not to add a staff salary or, that burden to the school district, but to have the foundation, a collaborative, reciprocal, kind of improving each entity's effectiveness.
Sure.
So I think that's probably kind of what you're hearing here tonight. It was just a complete surprise, Mike. We had no idea until Thursday. You said, "Guess what?"
Well, right. And let me just, because you make some excellent points here.
Okay.
And so let me just try to
Thanks.
address
I appreciate that.
Right. And so first, it was abrupt because they wanted to keep the website, like, they didn't want it leaking. They wanted to have like they wanted to have a sudden community law. They didn't want it leaking out, right? And so they said, let's have this launch on May 5th, right? And so that's when the website. So their choice, which was a good one, I think, to say that we want this to be like a public splash, right? Kind of necessitated not having this information out to say, look. Now, I think I did send out something that said, look, we're gonna have this launch on May 5th in advance, right?
Yeah, but I think it was about 3 days
It was
or
about
a
3
week
days, right?
in advance,
and
right?
That was the
Yeah,
planning that went
yeah.
into it. Now, as far as staffing, right? I mean, I can recall having an employee funded by the foundation in an office down the hall from where I used to work, right? And all that is not at all law. I mean, these are very, very sharp people. And so
No, full credit to them. Absolutely not disparaging.
and
Anytime a
so
volunteer
these-
wants to
right.
raise money, absolutely.
right, and I
That's
think-
wonderful, and we applaud them. Yes.
And I think that they're aware of, but it has to be scaled, right? So I mean, to hire an employee when there's no revenue coming in, right? I mean, this might be so. I would love to think that 5 years from now they have a staff of 6, right? And because they can't invest the money fast enough, right? So that's kind of hyperbole there, but I think as the foundation grows, and I believe it will, they will do things to make it, to accelerate that growth, and very likely over time it could be that either part-time or full-time, whoever works, that they get some staff to help it along. So I know that is not lost on them, but I think it's just a matter of scale as try to get out of the gate here.
Yeah, and if
So
there are any partnerships with other districts about folks who are currently involved, I'd be happy to facilitate making those connections with people I've already talked to who have already gone through this and run this both locally and throughout the Commonwealth. I have a few contacts that helped me, talk to me about what they did. So I'd be happy to give you those names as well.
Thank you. So I think the takeaway from the announcement and the positive is we have an education foundation that has been reformed. The monies have been transferred from what was the old SLUF to the new SLUF, and I know Lou had assisted with that. I think as far as the ongoing operation, and the key point of what you just said, Mike, to me, is they are starting. They are being very deliberate, and the individuals that are part of this team in the Education Foundation, this is not the first time that they've worked in the arena of raising money through private donations. And I think that's a key ingredient here. And as their organization grows, I would expect, and I know with you at the leadership and Lou also in the business office, there will be a strategic plan that is shared of what are additive investments that could be made in education.
Absolutely.
And we heard tonight, perhaps there's a way in which investment in STEM, and I could see many of the local businesses that are involved in that aspect of industry, perhaps being interested in contributing in a larger way than they may currently through an education foundation. So I think there are a number of opportunities that can be explored. And then being at an arm's length for a variety of reasons from the district, I think is a plus. I do know a number of boards that the superintendent and often the business manager have a dual role, and they bring an alignment aspect with the work that's going on in both entities. Many of the boards have moved away from having board representation, I think for a variety of reasons, let alone the fact that they can't stay to a consistent long-term plan. And anything in private donations has to be a long-term, not a pragmatic year in, year out solution, which I think, in my opinion, was part of the reason why the old Education Foundation struggled at times, was there wasn't a big vision and a big picture. I feel very different about this particular SLEF, and that there is a long-term vision. There is a mission that they see being able to be accomplished, and they have connections, which, going back to the feasibility study that we did in 2016 with the Carter Group, that was a key aspect of people that needed to be brought into the leadership, the board of the private education foundation. They needed to have ability in terms of their experience that they bring to the table, and they needed to have connections because they themselves were going to be the ones going out to raise monies. And that was a board that would be very capable if formed that way. It seems like we have that.
Oh, they do.
And that's a definite plus.
Yeah.
So I think having updates periodically, I'm not sure if quarterly is appropriate, but maybe biannual.
Or,
Updates.
as
Well-
information becomes available.
Well,
we do it
I would
monthly.
reiterate too that like they do have a secretary, and I'm assuming being a 501c3 that their secretary is probably taking notes at meetings. It might help just so that we can follow the progress and just see what's going on. If the minutes were posted on their page on our website, that'd be nice to see, I think.
And again, see, those are, like, in other words, if we need the preliminary budget, I go down to Lou's office, hey, Lou, let's go, right? This is not us, right? And so, like, that would be a suggestion or a thought that could be shared, but that truly is something that resides in their governance.
And it's not a common practice to see minutes
and so,
from
you know,
foundation meetings.
And I will tell you, like this board, I mean, this board, absolutely true, but the foundation board, like, they are devoted to making this work. Mr. Zellner himself was president of the Kutztown University Foundation. Like, they know what they're doing. All right. They are highly talented people with extensive experience in this area. And so, like, they don't need Mike to advise them. They are really good, but yet we can have a voice, and to the extent the board wants to formalize what that voice looks like on our end, like, I'm all for it. Like, this was just something that I was involved in because my thought was that is what the board wanted us to do. We're in a good place now at the start of it, and this will be a long-term relationship, a long-term productive relationship. As in all relationships, we'll adjust as time goes on to make it better continuously.
I'd like to bring this back to a positive note here. I think, number one, it's great that the foundation is starting again, as everybody said. In my experience over years now in providing scholarships to a school in Montgomery County, their foundation is separate. They have links to their website. When we write a corporate check to for those scholarships, it goes to the foundation, and it's just a good mechanism. I think, they obviously needed to get their ducks in a row and organize the foundation before anything moves forward. I'm confident in the administration to be putting together a communication avenue, if you will, that is of some regular state to interact back and forth between the foundation and the board. And, I think it's all great and it just started. There's going to be more to come over the next months once things develop further. So I'm wholeheartedly excited about this starting and expanding. I think it's well needed and well deserved for the school district.
Thank you. And I think I'm going to use something I said to you as a transition to the next topic, and that's strategic objectives, which is your strategic plan. So, Mike,
Okay.
why don't we
All right.
transition
Thank you.
into that?
Thank you. And I want to begin this presentation by talking about gratitude, right? And that is that, we've had a very exciting 18 months. And I look at, my opportunity just to simply be here and to work for a board that has been nothing but incredibly supportive of administration's work, to work with enormously talented colleagues in administration, to go back to our professional teaching staff, and their extraordinary abilities and their willingness to cooperate and to participate, our students, our community, our support staff, our clerical. This place, from an outsider's view, is a rocking school district. It really is. And so I stand here with a great sense of gratitude to be able to talk about some of the progress that has been made by our board, our administration, our teachers, and our community. So the way I did this was back in August 8th, 2022, I made a presentation to the board talking about our hopes and aspirations for the year. And we spoke about them in terms of, just the word I use is like strategic objectives. And so one of the things that I think it's fair to do, if we say at the beginning of the year, what is it that we set out to do as a board, as a district, as a community, then at the end of the year, we come back and say, hey, how did we do on those aspirations and those hopes? So what I did was, so this was the first slide. We had strategic objectives, which we'll go over each of those. And we had the stadium project, financing, health and safety plan, and dual enrollment. So these are exactly the slide as it appeared that we were going to talk about. And so we're going to actually go through that presentation and look. So what I did was everything new I put in red. Now I want to make a point, a very important point. If that looks orange, it isn't. All right. That is red. Okay. It is red from the letters. It is red on there. And that would only be lost in translation for anyone who sees that as being orange. I was a little worried as I was looking at this on the sheet. So yes, thank you for all those who are keeping score on that issue. And I know there's a few. And so I also thought, we're running through this presentation quickly, but I tried to put in a number of links so that if at your convenience or your convenience, come back and say, hey, look, let me just see what is being said here. So we put in the original report from August. You might recall in January, we did an update, like a preliminary midterm update of where we were. And then this report is linked here. And so all the updates are presented in red and the original presentation is in white. And so if you recall, last year, we said, look, we want to develop the best reading program in the Commonwealth. And we're going to begin a process of exploring how do we do it. And we said that, look, in that study, in that year of study, the first step that we wanted to take was to implement foundations, which is the phonics-based supplemental curriculum. And with those that phonics base, we implemented geodes. Geodes are readers, right? And they're written in a phonetic way that aligns with the work that's being done in the phonics class. So they're aligned, all right? So that kids are reading books that are consistent with what they're learning in phonics. And this kind of comes back to what everyone is writing about these days is the science of reading. Like you pick up the New York Times, the Washington Post, Time Magazine. This is the thing right now, and we're doing it, right? We're absolutely doing it. And I will say with just a smile, all right, it happens that today a regional school district was visiting Hopewell Elementary to take a glance at how we are teaching foundations, phonics, and with our GO. So I thought that was really good. And I think that's maybe the first step of many here. And so what's the status here? So we studied it last year. We're implementing this year. So we offered professional development in GOs in September to our staff. We offer professional development for foundations periodically through the year. We support delivered throughout the year by reading specialists and our instructional coaches. With respect to benchmarking, and that was part of our goal, we benchmarked in math and reading 3 times through the year using STAR 360. We did progress monitoring in math and reading occurring at regular intervals throughout the year using Acadience. And then we regularly review the data and services through a process that is designed to bring kids along and move them forward, especially students who are struggling. So that was, so we very successfully, I think, were able to achieve the implementation of GEOs. And anytime anyone would like to come in, we would love to have you come out to our buildings and our elementary to see these programs. And then we knew that Foundations in of itself is a great program for the vast majority of our students, but some students, especially in our special ed, well, definitely in our special ed, would benefit by ancillary programs and ancillary services. So we said that Foundations and GEOs are not enough, that we had to implement an ancillary program for our special education students called Read Well. And so when we look at Read Well, it really has been spectacularly successful. It is a systematic direct instruction coupled with fiction and nonfiction text. It's engaging for our students and our teachers too. So first I will tell you that Read Well has been very well received by our staff. We have, and more than being well received, it has been measurably successful. Growth observed across students. 17 students are in the next level of the reading program. Special education teachers remain excited about the program because they are seeing success with their students. We are expanding we're going to come back to the board and say, hey, look, we need to expand this as students from grade 3 are moving on and they're going to need some of this continued support. And I will tell you, I am the last one to look at anecdotes, right? Because anecdotes are only marginally valuable, all right? But I do have an anecdote here that I think is worth looking at because we believe it to be typical. And I'm going to take the time to read this about Paul. Prior to this year and the implementation of Read Well, Paul's reading progress was slow and inconsistent. He was a reluctant reader and was not motivated to participate in his instruction. Start of the school year, Paul was placed in Read Well, our first year of this program. He participated in daily instructions, made consistent progress, as evidenced by meeting his mastery criteria. Paul seemed to be more interested and listened and invested in his instruction. By the second marking period, he was choosing to read sample chapter books independently. Read Well provides instructional plans which allow pacing varying from 3 to 10 instructional days per unit, reflective of student pacing needs and the mastery of unit assessments and components. Due to Paul's consistent, quick progress, instruction was able to improve his reading fluency, and you get the sense of it, right? You get the sense of it, and so Paul is back to grade level now, and he's thriving. And this has been, acknowledgence and anecdote, but a powerful anecdote of how this program is helping kids to read, and I think it's extremely exciting. So I'm very, very pleased with the implementation of Read Well. It has gone very well, thanks to our special education department, our curriculum department. So it's been really good. I think here we are. And we know that the foundations and the GEOs were not enough. I think I'm going to close the door.
Mr. Miller, don't go ruin the fun. sound like they're having
Mr.
fun.
Miller. Okay, all right. Put out your happy face, Mr. Miller. Your happy face, right? Okay, all
Wear a
right.
smile.
Yes, right. Okay.
Never fully dressed without a smile, Mr. Miller.
That's right.
All
that's
right.
Okay. And so from the very beginning, we said, look, Foundations is the supplemental program, right? Not the be all end all. It was a great start. It's phonics related, but we have to adopt a core program. So this year, just as the last year was a year of study and implementation of Foundations, this year was a year of study to select a core program. All right. And so we ended up spending the year doing this study. And it was, I really want to thank Dr. Trinkle and her staff. It was intensive. And there's a spreadsheet here that looks at how they reviewed various programs. We had great support from our teachers who were very much engaged in the process. I think we did a pretty decent job, a really good job actually, of communicating. This is an example of our presentation we gave January 9th to the board, keeping everybody posted on where we were with the program. And then we're grateful that in spring of 2023, we approved the Wit and Wisdom program. And then, of course, it'll be to no one's surprise that we'll be implementing Wit and Wisdom come the fall. So that will be one of our strategic objectives going forward. And we also know that when students graduate grade 3 and move to grade 4, we have to be ready for them because we believe we're going to be creating some exceptionally great readers, and we have to elevate our entire district. And so we had to look at grade 4. So we had to develop and implement a process to extend the K through literacy initiative to grades 4 and 6. As part of the review this year, we identified Wit and Wisdom as something that would also be valuable not only in grades K through 3, but in grades K through 6. And then this is just a artifact of the process that we went through in order to come to that conclusion. So there's a lot of information there, and board members can certainly look at that. I'm going to fill them in on the process. Now, one of the things that encouraged me a great amount was Dr. Trinkle and I, some time ago, were hauled in by the English and Social Studies department at the high school saying, look, we need to work on curriculum here. We need to get going. And while the bulk of our efforts and our focus has been on K through 3 literacy, we recognize that at the start of this year, we had to come up with some additional high priority curricular objectives that were unrelated to the K through 3 initiative. So when we look at this, we did obviously the curriculum review and evaluation for ELA grades 7 through 11. We did a curriculum review for social studies grades 7 through 12. Spanish immersion, all right? We recognize, there was a great article, by the way, that I think I sent out and it's posted on the website of some statewide attention that our Spanish immersion program has received. And so, we just could not grab Foundations and Wit and Wisdom and drop them into Spanish. So we're looking at, unique and valuable ways to build up our Spanish immersion language arts instruction, just as we have with our English. We've looked at, a number of different things, and like say math fact fluency, right? That's big, knowing your math facts. So we want to make sure that, we are supporting efforts to make sure that our kids can do their math facts. So I'll just click on one of these. You could see, I don't want to go through all the links, but you can see this is a kind of a summary of our professional development day back on March 10th. I want to thank Dr. Solometo for her extensive work on all these things. And you can see that this is, some of the things that we're focused on during that day to try to advance and assist our teachers in their great work for teaching math facts. Kind of a simple little thing, but an important one, nevertheless. And again, board members have access to all these documents. Okay.
Can I ask a quick question
Yes.
since you're switching between
Yes,
slides? Because
of
I'll
course.
forget the first 3 items that you mentioned on that last slide. I guess what's the timeline for the curricular review and Because where are we in the cycle, I guess, for those
Sure.
three subjects?
But we have moved away from the curricular
Okay, good.
cycle of excellence.
That's good. So that's why
Uh,
I'm curious because
and-
the science you had a specific like timeline. You said 2025 to 2026. So I'm just
Yes.
wondering when do you anticipate ELA, social studies?
Well, it will be ongoing. Let me.
I was just
I
curious.
can-
Sorry.
No,
I
no,
didn't-
not at all. I can get. So here's social studies, just by way of example.
ELA and social studies.
Okay. And there will not be. I mean, it's a long process. It
Right,
will be
agreed.
years. It will be years. So.
But I'm
So-
assuming by the way you described it, it was starting.
Yeah,
and
it is starting.
It's ongoing. So I guess when would we expect to see potential changes? I guess.
And I will have to get back. I don't know that we have a specific date as we did with reading.
Okay.
All right. But this. So for example, they had to do an overview of their course documents. So
Right.
look at internally what is they're doing. We're going to try to align it with the standards.
Right.
And then we're developing resources and kind of wish lists. And,
Okay.
and we'll see later on when we look at CLEP exams,
Right.
In the back of our mind, we're thinking that as students are taking these exams to do college credits, perhaps those assessments will help inform
Mhm.
our instruction.
Right.
All right. So our language arts program is on a tried and true timeline. By hook or by crook, we're going to be successful on a timeline. Less so for our other
Okay.
projects. And I think as we kind of transition away from once we get our ELA up and running, we'll be able to, I think, devote more time and energy to it. But it's definitely something that we are actively involved in.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
If you wanted to accelerate it, could you? And how quickly could you make some of the desired changes that would improve upon the program?
You know, we're very much into doing things well and not necessarily fast. And so Dr. Schenkel, I don't know if you want to try to hazard a guess at that because.
Well, it's true.
Yeah.
We do have some timelines in perspective. What comes easy doesn't always last. So we're kind of taking that perspective in a lot of the work that we're doing with the science standards, with structured literacy. Those timelines have been created for us, and we are on pace or on target to hit them either by that year in play or before. Structured literacy, we're there with the work that we're doing. And we are paying attention strategically to the science standards as well. We are in an ongoing evaluation of ELA 7 through 12 right now with a potential implementation or finalizing our evaluation of those programs soon to decide where we would like to target our efforts 7 through 12. The team 7 through 12, along with Dr. Solometo, has been actively working on that while we've been doing the K to 6. But small bites at a time with capacity, we do not want to take on more than we can do exceptionally well. But some of those other things are happening, impacting our programs of study at the high school in particular, and taking a look at that where we can start to implement some strategic changes, not next year, but the following year because of those science standards. So we do have a pretty well mapped out plan. Also trying to pay attention to math, especially at the K to 6, in the K to 6 area. The goal with Wit and Wisdom is to see how that will impact other content areas before sweeping in and making any other changes. So we see how that kind of impacts our other curricular areas in math, social studies, and science. So we want to kind of see how that goes, evaluate that, and then make some moves in that direction as well. We have a lot happening very quickly. And we have moved away from a cycle. We're kind of creating our own new one at this point with a fresh look, fresh goals, and some strategic areas that you see up there.
Yeah.
But there are some timelines that we have in play.
Yeah, and I just want to quote one of the biggest compliments that I think we was like, this is the implementation schedule and people coming in and training and all that kind of thing. And one of the things that we heard, which is a very kind thing someone said we took to heart, was that one of our teachers said that we are grateful that we are not putting the horse before the cart. Or yes.
Yeah, you got it right.
Yeah, what I was saying, right? Yeah, right, cart
Yeah.
before the horse.
Horse before the cart's a good thing.
Right now,
Yeah.
Yeah.
our horse is in front of our cart.
Wow, there you go.
Whatever, but she
Yeah.
said it much better. But the point that she was
She
making
appreciates
is,
that you are putting the horse in the right position.
that
to
was
pull the
kind of
cart.
what she
Yes.
said, yes, but in a much better way. But and sometimes by rushing, right? Because our people have to be able to be comfortable with this. Our teachers have to be able to say, all right, hey, I got to manage a class, which is really hard. Got 1,000 things going on, have demands, and so we have to do this in a way that's incrementally constructive for our teachers, and so that always is kind of in the back of our mind. How
Well, and-
quickly we go, but yet we need to move, right? We just can't talk forever.
Right. And,
Dr.
and I
Trinkle.
ask because if I've heard the number of times that you've mentioned this, individuals were raising their hands saying, we need your help.
They are.
And it
They are.
wasn't, I don't think people would ask for the help if they felt what they were doing was satisfactory. So that implies to me that there's some need for a quick change and some process and some curriculum to be put in place that they feel confident in, and that there can be some consistency in terms of how it's delivered.
Yeah, that's right. And let me just say, like, just like the foundation doesn't need Mike's help, they don't need Mike's help either, right? Because they're good, they're great, they're doing it. But what they could use is like some support and some resources, right? And some training. And that is what they're asking for. And we are committed to providing it. And they have been very, very helpful in supporting that effort. So we're on the way. We would like to say this is all done tomorrow. And I know that's not what you're asking by any means.
I know
but,
it takes time
it will
to,
take
to
time,
build it
but-
right,
but
where you're going to have the right
we-
outcomes and something that they all have contributed to building and they feel confident in
Right.
delivering it. So.
And so I guess maybe I'll sum it up by saying that we are cautious in our approach, but we are also, a word I use all the time, is restless. All right. And so we want to get stuff done, and we want to make it better and quicker, sooner rather than later, but in a way that's thoughtful too.
Dr. Trinkle, now just say quickly that, these sorts of things, when you're making large shifts in curriculum and processes and theories, you're doing this along with everything else that all of the teachers and department heads and everybody else are doing every day. They've got to they're fitting that in between what they're doing on a regular basis. And you have breakout sessions and things of that nature that create this schedule so that you can incrementally get it done, but in the most efficient way possible with given everything else. Is that the bottom line of this?
Yes, and with some of the change that we had, Dr. Solometto met very quickly with department leaders, building administrators, teacher leaders, to resurrect some of those goals that maybe have been laying dormant for some time. And we heard loud and clear what the needs were, and we tried to strategically prioritize those with already existing goals that we had, knowing that it takes time, it takes patience, funding. And not all of those things can happen simultaneously. I mean, they could, it would not go well. But simple things, low-hanging fruit, looking at textbooks, looking at resources, we've done that strategically, and hopefully we'll have some of those things in play for next year. Low-hanging fruit's already been accomplished, but some of those bigger tasks will take time, and they should. So yes.
Could you give us a snapshot perspective of, just from a planning perspective, what is a typical life cycle of a curriculum? You right now you're in the process of looking at 7 to 12, and that's the beginning of the process. And then adopting the curriculum and getting appropriate training and support and implementation, and then, reassessment of how is it really going, to the point of coming full. Like, I know we're talking years, but could you give us an idea? And I'm sure it's dependent on whether it's a science curriculum, because if suddenly Pluto is no longer a planet, you have to look at it sooner than, right? But could you give us a snapshot idea?
I think it would be hard to attach a year.
Right.
What I would say is that we plan to, like Wit and Wisdom, in its replacement of the current K to 6 curriculum, or not even K to 6 curriculum, that's K to 3, and then they were kind of patchwork
Right.
from 4, 5, and 6. Is that we plan for implementation, and we plan to evaluate regularly. Our goal is not to move to another curriculum in the next 3 years. That would not be ideal. That would mean that we made the wrong selection, which I do not think we have. But that is an ongoing process. That will be a process that happens annually and very frequently in all subject areas. When content changes, that does push a shift. The reading shift may feel seismic in its capacity, but I really think by and large our teachers have been doing this for a very long time, and now we're just providing them the resources and the time to do it and hone their craft, which I think has been very beneficial. And I think the school district that visited us today would tell you the same. So,
Thanks.
Okay. So moving on, if you recall, the other end of our focus was dual enrollment. Right? We knew that K-3 was a big issue, and also dual enrollment opportunities, post-secondary opportunities for high school kids was big. And one of the things that I remember the board saying along the way was, look, you have these things in place, but no one knows what they are, and you need to communicate better. And we have taken that very much to heart. And so this slide links to, I want to thank Mr. Miller for his work on this. This is kind of a comprehensive summary of our dual enrollment programs, and included here is a document. Let's try to get this out here. Okay, included here is a document that actually has links. Like if you were to click this link, it takes you right to
Mike, just to let you know, I'm
Yeah.
sitting here trying to click on these links
Yeah.
as you're going through, and none of my links are working. It could be user error, maybe it's me or how it opened on my computer, but I can't access any of your links in the document.
And you know what? Having practiced this before, they were working, but I'm having no luck with them right now either. But they will be up and running. They will go right to these places, to the universities that will provide students the information. And so we're very cognizant that having a good thing, which we truly do, is of little use if people aren't accessing it. And so that is something that we will be working on. But we do have, I think, a very good description of our programs and our opportunities, and one that we'll only be building upon. And so here's some exciting news about expansions of dual enrollment. Because we said back in August, we want to develop dual enrollment pathways that will lead to certifications and associate degrees. We want to explore college level examination program, CLEP. Again, that was something that we wanted to try, or at least look into back in August. And we want to expand and enhance partnerships. Well, here's something that I think is really neat. We have been working on an education pathway for our dual enrollment program. Everybody knows that teachers are in high demand. We cannot find enough. People are not majoring in education anymore. Far more teachers are retiring that are coming into the system. And so we thought it would be very wise to find ways to take Southern Lehigh students, the best in the Valley, move them into education for those who are interested, and make sure they get back to us once they graduate for community sustaining and generationally supporting teaching jobs in Southern Lehigh. So we are in discussions, and we're at like the near end discussions with Lehigh Community College, where we plan to develop pathways where students can take a set of courses here and through LTRI-C that will set them well down the road to achieving their degree in education and ultimately their education certification to become a teacher. And we think it's exciting. We think it's a great place to start for our pathways. We have ideas of perhaps expanding this to business and entrepreneurship. For the education pathway, we spoke to Kutztown, we spoke to East Stroudsburg University, and we have, very receptive ears at LTRI-C at this point. And so our hope is that we'll be able to come back to you in the very near future to approve a pathway for our students to take coursework here at Southern Lehigh High School and then ultimately end up well along the way to becoming teachers. And I may be coming to you saying, hey, for $30 a credit, maybe you could fund it for us for this particular set of students because of the benefit that it may actually bring back to us. But a future discussion. All right, future discussion.
So
yes,
on this topic with LTRI-C, can we also pursue with them perhaps having observations for their current students and having Southern Lehigh as a site that current students of LTRI-C could go into our classrooms and observe the teaching taking place.
It's all part of it. That's
Yes.
definitely,
Yeah,
that's all part of it.
I understand we're currently not. The school, the closest school to here that you can do that is Deardorff High School in Allentown.
We don't take teachers? We don't take student observers here? Do we take student observers? Yeah, we do. We
They-
take them.
So, N of one, our son had to go to Deardorff to do it. He could not, Southern Lehigh was not offered as a school where he could do observations. He had one like 40 minutes away or Deardorff.
We can work with L-Tri-C to get them on our approved
Yeah.
list, get on their approved list.
Okay.
Yeah, we want them. I mean,
I
that's
mean,
the thing.
because I
That's the
think
whole
that would
idea.
help to the end goal of also
Well, that's the
having a
idea,
pool of teachers.
that a kid would be here taking the classes, doing some observations. So that's all part of what we would totally expect, for sure. Yes. And then the CLEP exams, right? Southern Lehigh is the only public school district in the southeast quarter of the state that is a CLEP exam approved testing center. And the CLEP exams, there's a list of them here. I think some of you might have seen this, but these are all exams that are be given twice a year. We're looking at maybe at least twice a year, at least twice a year. All right. But we're looking at where students would be given the opportunity to say any of these courses, even if you're not taking them, right? Let's say you're a great writer and you want to get 3 credits in composition, right? You have to pay $90 for a test. If you pass the test, then you receive 3 college credits that are at least as transferable as AP exam credits. And when you look at all the state schools, they are accepted. You'd be quite surprised that the like high-flying private schools, a lot of them would be accepting these credits. Great for general electives. You know, when you come in and you have to take all these different classes that cost a lot of money and time for kids. We think this, coupled with the dual enrollment opportunities, would be a boom to our kids. And in talking to the foundation, perhaps we could be helping out students who, you know, might have a struggle with the $90. So that I think is really exciting. And we're kind of unique. And from what Mr. Miller tells me, there's some interest from other districts sending their kids here to be taking those exams. Right. So
I have a question.
Yes.
When you know how I feel about dual enrollment, so you know I'm in love with the CLEP exam.
Mhm.
But has that already started? Like, or is it soon, or will we be able to start testing?
Yes, we have. It's actually a pretty hard process. So the board thankfully approved we were accepted, and I know Dr. Trinkle and Dr. Solometo and a bunch of other people have to go through some pretty rigorous training now to be exam proctors and moderators and handle this whole thing. So I think we have something in October. Don't we have something in October?
Yeah, we have tentatively slated our first testing session would be October 14th, I believe, of next in the fall. In order for us to be, you're sitting in one of the rooms that is licensed to be a center, actually. That and the library are our 2 locations. We have to test at least 50 individuals rather, a year in order to maintain that licensing and the certification. It does require extensive training. Dr. Solometo took that as well. It was not pain-free, but we do have teachers, and Mr. Miller also will be completing that training in order to facilitate those exams. So it does take some time. And then once we complete our certification, they have to come out and do a site visit in order to make sure we have the capacity that we identified, which we do.
Will they also be, will there be like certain tests that are offered at certain times, or will you sign up for a test and just show up on that day and they'll have that test there for you kind of thing?
Yeah, it's actually kind of like going to take your praxis. If you go to Sylvan Learning Center and you know you're going for this praxis, you go to this computer and that's where it is. So we will have 50 devices available or more, depending on how many individuals are securing a test. And part of that testing certification allows you to set those features within the device that we have available for you.
And I'm assuming that we will regularly be sending out to the students or even to the families, like, hey, we're having a testing date, October 14th. These are all the subject areas your kid can test out of. And
That is a tentative date, provided our site visit goes well. That is where we cannot have any other activities happening at that time, or around the testing areas. So October is a really nice shift in there's still outdoor activities. Typically, there's no indoor practices. So we really had to take a look at and work with athletics as well to coordinate that. But some pushes have gone out, especially to faculty here. And once we have a little bit more firm handle on that being a date, we will be pushing that out to anyone who will listen.
And I will skip over quickly later in the thing, but one of the requirements is that we have to have the CLEP exams only work on PCs. They don't work on Macs or Chromebooks, and we didn't have anything there. So Mr. Suma, Mr. Pepe had to look in his left drawer, front desk. He found an envelope there, and I'm teasing. But Mr. Pepe and Mr. Suma worked together, and so we purchased a PC computer lab with 50 devices. And so we will have a mobile CLEP PC lab, and we certainly will hope to use it for many more things than just CLEP exams. But it's a new platform in our high school. I think one that could be of great value to us at many different levels. And the board was aware of this, and we're grateful for your support for this. We'll be approving it on the bills because we wanted to move quickly. But thank you to Mr. Suma and Mr. Pepe for accelerating that purchase. And are they in yet? Or should be delivered today? How about that? Very good. All right. Excellent. And we have carts and stuff that were already here in inventory, so we're really good. I'm using a lot of time, so I'm going to try to move a little quicker here. We said back in August that we need to develop a comprehensive process to collect and analyze student achievement data, and that was something the board was pushing for. And so we intend to present periodic reports to stakeholders, and every November you could rely on us to present rely on Dr. Trinkle to be more precise, but you can rely on us to present to the board a comprehensive presentation of our student achievement for the year. And I will tell you, even though we'll present it once a year, it is something that we live every day with respect to the work that we do. And, no need to go back and reiterate the presentation, but if you care to look at it, you already saw it on the 5th. You can see it again if you'd like. So now moving on to technology, we need to determine a district-wide strategy for hardware and software utilization. And we said that a process will be developed and implemented to identify and evaluate technology utilization in advance of the expiration of the Apple computer lease, and recommendations will be provided to the board regarding lease renewal and possible alternatives. So here we go very quickly. Currently, and the board is aware of this, we have iPads, Chromebooks, and MacBooks in the district at various grade levels. We were really worried about the lease because when we first heard that we had leases here, we thought, is this like for a car? And will they take it back on us? Will they take the computers back when the lease is over, right? But we happily found out early on, no, these computers are our own. At the conclusion of 2024, we own them, so no one is taking them away. Okay. So there's no need to purchase replacement
Question.
equipment. Yes.
Because it's normally about this time that Apple comes back to us and say, we will happily buy those computers back and let you lease a whole new computer.
And let me get on with that, right?
Okay.
That's what this slide is about, right? Because they did come back, right? And we said, wait a minute. The iMacs, the MacBooks that we have now are not a good batch of MacBooks. They break. Their screens are prone to snapping. Well, but this is particularly the case with this version, this vision of them. And so, and they also don't have a new one out to replace it. So it would make no sense, and they actually agreed with us, for us to be purchasing a new batch of the books that have been costing us a ton of money to fix. So we're not looking to purchase back or rework MacBooks, okay? And this goes to a point where we're kind of actually considering that strategy, like maybe revising that approach to things here, because our strategy had been to lease new computers and then sell them back to capture, as we're told, the residual value, because, well, if you sell them back in a short time, you get more for them, right? But our view at this point is that you kind of take a hit on the depreciation. Like if you buy a car, the greatest amount of depreciation occurs like over years 1, 2, and 3. And so if you're buying a new car and then kind of selling it back, well, you do have residual value, you're getting hit up pretty hard with the depreciation of the car. And so now we are exploring a strategy of actually being on the other end of the transaction, right? And saying for another district that is selling them back after a certain amount of time, maybe we would then be in the market, all right, to buy like a 3-year-old Accord, all right, rather than a brand new Accord, get the utilization out of them, and in turn, I think, and we're going to, do some present value calculations on all this and looking at the lifespan of the computers, but we're pretty confident that this would be a better strategy for us. But again, something that we're looking at for the future. Okay. And then as far as deployment, no changes are anticipated for 23-24. And this has been a big one. Everybody thinks we're going to steal their MacBook right off them, right? And so what we're going to say is anyone who has a MacBook, any staff members, anybody, just keep it. Like, don't drop it, right? But so long as you have your MacBook, you can keep it, all right? And then beyond 23-24, iPads are pretty well ingrained in our elementary. There's a lot of good apps. They're working very well. So we don't foresee much of a change in K-3. We certainly don't see any changes in Chromebooks in grade 4 through 6. But as we get to the end of this lease, and as we look to swap out to new, I think we need some further consideration and conversation about MacBooks versus Chromebooks in grade 6 through 12. Okay, so that's the objective right there, and you have links to it, but that's kind of the result of our analysis. Okay. And then moving into, some of our facilities, Mr. Pepe, Mr. Rohrbaugh have been working really hard. Our facility committee has done extraordinary work, but our strategic objective, we had a stadium project. We want to inform and advise the board on all aspects of the project and manage and oversee construction. And this was a windy road, all right? But we're there, right? So we have construction of the stadium is well underway and on schedule for substantial completion in early August 7th, we're hoping, 2023. So we're on a good path with that, and I want to thank everybody for their work.
Just a question.
Yes.
The basins are still ongoing with the upper basin. Do we have a tentative date for that upper basin to be completed?
This should be wrapped up by the end of the week.
Yeah.
I think they're
There's
moving into the.
tons of dirt on the field. They are working.
Within the next 2 weeks,
Yeah.
Mike's telling me.
That's when we can now move up to.
Oh, you should see up the field. Oh, they're working. They're working up there. They've crossed the line, right? And then we also said back in August that we had to look at the structural external wall issue at the intermediate school, and we're very happy to say that this is going to be fixed, right? After long time, our board, our facility committee, our community could say this is going to be fixed. So we're excited about that. We also said back in August we need to get underway on our major maintenance projects. We said we want to identify and prioritize major maintenance projects. We want to acquire and engineering architectural services. We want to develop multi-year schedules. We want to manage all functions of bidding and construction. And we ended up hiring, I think this was a great decision. They're proving to be everything we had hoped they would, EI Associates. The board appointed them as our district architect. Construction of the firm's initial project, an overhaul of the high school's HVAC system, will begin in the summer of 2023. And then significantly utilizing the federal grant funding, we set aside money for the language arts program, and we set aside money for HVAC ventilation. And this is now, it's coming to fruition in this summer. Excited to say. Now, as we knew this was on the horizon, the board said, look, how are we going to pay for this? And so our objective was to identify and present construction financing options to the board. We had to coordinate financing with our federal grants, and we had to implement the board identified financial option. And you recall, we ended up coming back, we looked at bonds versus loans, and we ended up thinking, well, a bond just be too costly. We're going to look at a loan. And then we We sent out proposals to get a loan, which we did. And the proposal came back and they said, we'll hold to this for months. They locked in the rate, but weren't committed to it. We continued our analysis to say, do we pay this out of fund balance? Do we take the loan? How does this work? And as we are thinking about how to approach this, interest rates are skyrocketing. And as it happened, the interest rates during that time period exceeded, all right, the underlying rate of the loan, which was locked in, I think probably to the consternation of the bankers who locked it in. And in the end, we were able to finance the project by taking a loan at an interest rate that was lower than we were earning on the funds in our fund balance. And now we are drawing down the loan only as is necessary, and we're enjoying a differential rate on our interest. So this just worked out nicely, right? And we can't say that we knew interest rates were going to, but it worked really well. So as it turns out, this was fortunate, but I think also good planning, and thanks to the facility committee and the board going into it. For operational efficiency, and we're coming to the end here. We wanted to look at food service, duplication of underutilized technology, staffing and schedules. And so let me just look very quickly at a couple of the highlights here. And so here, I'm just going to take one without going through the whole thing. But this was an analysis done, led by Dr. Trinkle and Mr. Pepe, of saying, how are we doing with our technology? We have so many of these apps and programs that we necessarily purchased during the pandemic. How much are we using? How are we not using them? At the end of the day, following this analysis, we ended up saving $170,000. And we believe we're still in a good spot with respect to the services that we're providing, the information that's available to our teachers. And so given the hour, I think I'm just going to kind of slide over the rest of these, right? You could certainly come back and look at them, and we would take questions.
I had one quick
Yes.
question about the technology shuffle, because it says here the staffing, schedules, allocating, all that.
Yeah.
The technology issues that we had discussed at the last meeting. I don't expect an answer or talking about it now, but I am concerned with an extensive list that we all received of what our technology directors are doing at the high school. And I just want to know that we aren't seriously shorting our teachers in what looks to be like an enormous amount of support that they were receiving from these technology guys. And I just want to, like I said, you don't have to answer about it now because we are where we are. But I want to make sure that we do maybe take another look at that and discuss that further.
Happy. We could talk. Give me a call. We'll set up a conversation, and we could go through chapter and verse of all the information that you may have at your disposal, and then we can. And that's true for any board member who wants to discuss it. Okay. And again, as our tech department, those individuals are more on the professional staff side, not part of our tech department. Like, for instance, they report ultimately to Dr. Trinkle as opposed to Mr. Suma. Okay.
Could I ask a quick question?
Sure.
When you were saying collecting and analyzing the student data annually? Well, it's
Yes.
wonderful to hear. I was just wondering, I think there was some discussion, I didn't know if this would be included or not, or if we could look to include it in the future. Capturing post-graduation pathways our high school graduates are currently choosing. So to the best of my knowledge, we don't have a system to capture that. And I do know that for instance, the guidance department used to, does an amazing job with what they can, but they simply don't have enough, resource and staff to both help our students through their future pathway process from a support staff perspective, and also record accurately where those kids are going. So as a part of this, central office effort, and I do know we're down to I think one guidance secretary in the high school, and I don't want to put more on the staff because the most important thing is helping kids after graduation. But if there is a way that we could focus in some easy, systemic way, capturing post-graduation pathways of our graduates and also just our alums and where are they and what are they doing? Because part of the ultimate goal of, all this public education is to produce, contributing community members and citizens in our society. It would be nice to know where they're going, what they're doing, how we can contact them to perhaps coach and mentor our kids in these buildings about potential pathways, and also see perhaps where our education could better supplement and give better opportunities with what they're doing. So if we could find a way to capture that, I am not for a second trying to put it on that guidance department. They do a bang up job, but I just know that's an area in which we have always been lacking. So I just saw that as my chance to give a little plug. Thank you.
Maybe it could be solved as simply as they self-report. Just it's a way that they could provide their information. It's also a way that I'm assuming, much like other districts, there are reunions that take place, and you could have a repository of information to go back and contact those individuals.
Okay. And then, we knew as a strategic objective, we were going to spend the year looking at policies. Mr. Pigeon has been guiding that process, and just a very brief summary slide here where, we are getting those policies. We've been connected to PSBA, and we plan to continue those conversations. We had, I think, a very good discussion the last time about process and how we're going to do it. So as the next 2.5 years go by, we'll be continuing to refine that process, and ultimately we'll have some really exceptional administrative regulations and policies in place. Okay. Staff expense analysis, a quick update there. We did approve a board organizational chart. The board approved our organizational chart. That's there. That was already approved. We did say we had an internal audit of medical roles, but we're going to roll that into next year, medical and payroll. All right, so that will be one of our objectives for next year. And our administration engaged in an extensive discussion and analysis with representatives of the healthcare consortium, including assuming a leadership position. Mr. Pepe actually rose quickly to the top of the consortium. We were able to strike with our input a new agreement between the consortium and Highmark. Based on these interactions, the administration has developed a strong degree of confidence in the value provided by our medical consortium. We have a whole host of additional details which we will share with the board through administration's interactions with our board's committee. So we have much more to discuss on this topic.
So a question for you and or Lou. As part of the consortium, are they being hit like many other organizations are with the cost of specialty drugs, and are they taking a look at that?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and part of our report will detail what is happening with specialty drugs and what they're doing about it and what impact it can have on us. So definitely part of the conversation. Okay.
I'm sorry, I missed that report will be occurring when? I missed a board committee when?
That is kind of sensitive information.
Sure. That's what I was thinking. I was just surprised to hear. Okay.
And so we've been gathering information because we know that, in January, a year and a half from now, negotiations will be formally kicking off. So we should be doing some preparation, which we have done here.
Okay.
And
So you're talking about a negotiation committee?
Yeah.
Well, ultimately,
A board, but that, I mean,
board
I think
committee, executive session,
Right.
there's all types of ways for us, but I think probably best not in public session.
No, absolutely. I was just making sure it was just my confusion for a second. I just didn't hear it. But a couple of meetings ago, it was publicly announced that negotiation would be transpiring. As a board, we need to prepare for it. Obviously, not publicly, but that's the committee you're talking about, right?
I was not talking about any committee in specific. It could
Oh,
be
okay.
executive
Just-
session. It could
gotcha.
be committee of the whole. It
Okay.
could be any number of things. But I certainly would suspect that negotiation committee would be among those that we would be talking to state to. And
Okay.
again, I just want to say, like, this goal was established back in August.
Yeah.
So this is part of it.
Yes.
Okay. And then during the course of the year, things come up that were unanticipated. And so I just wanted to do kind of additional activities. And I really want to note some really good work on technology projects that have emerged during the year. And the board is aware of all these, and you have very graciously supported them. But we found that much of the internet infrastructure had reached or exceeded its typical life cycle. The infrastructure was insufficient to service the number of devices because we all know during the pandemic, things kind of exploded as far as devices were concerned. We did a comprehensive update, including 2 controllers, 50 switches, and over 250 access points that will be installed over the summer. And for the first time in at least a while, we received very significant federal dollars to support this project through E-rate. The other major project that we kind of identified that there were at least 10 physical servers nearing the end of their useful life. We realized that increasing security with greater flexibility is virtualization of a server, moving all of those 10 separate iron servers into a single virtualized server. We were so excited that we actually had that server in inventory that had been purchased for us. And so we are well underway with our data center project, and we will have virtualized our center into a single unit with appropriate security and backup in place. And we think, by late summer, early fall, we will have that process completed, which will give us a lot of flexibility going forward. For instance, things like 2-factor authentication and increased security, that will be very helpful as we try to set up those types of initiatives in 23, 24. I think it was Mr. Lysette and others who were saying, like, how many mobile phones do we have? What's the bill? Right, so we had a mobile phone audit, and we cut back very substantially on the mobile phone usage, and we've cut back the bill. I think that was a very positive thing for us to have done. And then we're very excited. Later this month, we're coming back to the board with a plan to reorganize our phone system that will save tens of thousands of dollars and provide us with better security as far as being able to know what line is being used for what purpose, which might have been handy in recent days, as you might recall. So that's kind of a preview of coming attractions later on this month. And we have the District Foundation we spoke about earlier. Dr. Trinkle has done great work this year with respect to improved safety, not least of which is some substantial improvement in our surveillance that we'll talk about, but all of that is executive session, which we anticipate at the end of the year in June. And this is a big one. I'm really excited about this. People will recall that, remember the big thing that we were all worried about, and board members were getting hit with this left and right about, hey, like our kids are in study halls, there's no one in, there's no subs, what's happening with all this, right? And so our HR office undertook an initiative to do a guest teacher program. So instead of having this done through the intermediate unit and other places, we've been training our own teachers, which they have certificates only for Southern Lehigh, which we'd love to have them. And if you look at data, if you look at January 1st, 22 to April 30th, 2022, our fill rate was at 62%. But now, over this same period this year, just ending a few short days ago, our fill rate is at 82%, in large part because of these efforts. And this is, and again, I put aside 200, staff absences are up. Now, 200 is like not much at all. Like we're talking tons of teachers, tons and tons of days. So all we're saying is that with a fractional tiny increase in the number of days that teachers are out, we're having very substantial improvements in our fill rates. And I think it's a direct response to some of the administrative efforts that went on to try to address that problem that the board very clearly and forcefully and rightly pointed out as a problem for us. And then also we have kind of reorganized how we track clearances. We know that's an important component of our effort to keep kids safe. And so now, which is not the case before, our staff can go into the portal and check on their clearances. And so I want to conclude by again saying thank you, right? This has been a great run. We have lots still to do. And I thank to the board, to our administration, to our professional staff, and our community for the opportunity to push ahead with this stuff. Any questions?
Well, I have to say that's a pretty big list, and as probably a lot of people know, you need to move each piece on its own, but all of them simultaneously, it takes a big effort from everybody within the school district to keep those pieces moving. And I think there's a lot of accomplishment there. I think there, as you said, there's more to do, and I'm fully confident in the work everybody's been putting in, from the teaching staff to the professional staff and administration, to get all of this moving and to keep it moving. So I'm pretty happy with
Southern
what I
Lehigh
see.
has a good story to tell, right? And people should be proud of the work that you're doing. And they have not seen anything yet. It's got to say. Right? Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
That's it.
I was just
I have
doing
other-
some inventory here, and I think we're good with all of the superintendent updates, but that moves us to curriculum, student, and staff services. So,
Why don't you? I can sit down.
Yeah.
You got water.
We are asking the board to review, we can certainly have a discussion about materials inventory from within our district. We have items contained in this folder that will either be posted for sale or disposed of according to our policy. So simultaneously into implementation of new resources and new curriculum, we've also been inventorying what we have and what has not been utilized for a substantial amount of time. And that this is the process, and we kind of said this the other day, it's kind of metaphorical for us, is that we are moving forward with new innovative ways to teach our students and engage in learning. We are also disposing of those materials that are outdated and no longer in use, so that we can make room for things that we do need space for. So that is on the list for your review and vote next meeting, I suspect.
meeting.
No, actually,
Or is it on vote for now?
well,
Okay.
No.
If the board is supportive of the
Okay.
idea, we can vote now and start clearing things out.
Yeah.
If the board would prefer to wait, we could add it to the later.
Yeah.
One.
We would very much appreciate that. Thank
Okay.
you, Dr. Solometo, for other custodial maintenance staff who supported us in that process. It was not a one-day effort, I can assure you. So thank you for that work.
so I think if that's the case that you're requiring a vote, then we'd need a motion. Okay, so we have that. So any questions? No?
I guess the only thing I would like to ask is regarding that material, is there anywhere where it goes that can be of use again for other regions or school districts or people that are more in need? That's the only thing I would think of.
And some of our resources are.
Good.
And there was a very small amount of money that we received in exchange, but there are resources that will be used and utilized elsewhere, just not here. That was
great.
that was one of our
That's the
steps
only thing
in the
I was
process.
hoping for.
Yes.
So that's great.
Yes.
Any additional questions? Okay, then we'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. So for information only, we have some additional items. And are there any individuals that have signed up for the closing visitor comments?
Actually, Bill, could I just add other additional timely information item? I stumbled across an opportunity for some of our older students I just wanted to make people aware of. I was down at voter registration office in Lehigh County this week, and I ran into an individual who runs, her name is Alexandra Sierra, and she runs the Student Poll Worker Program out of Lehigh County. And great, Dr. Twinkle, you've heard about this. So I was not aware of this before, but I just wanted to present it as an opportunity to our students, our parents, social studies or civics classes, or anyone interested in this. 17-year-olds with parent permission and 18-year-olds can sign up to be student poll workers, student poll worker program. It's a paid position. The Lehigh County office and the individual who runs this, Alexander Sierra, said they are happy to teach students. It's a learning opportunity, and it also fulfills a civic duty, and it's a great opportunity for kids to do something outside of the normal day-to-day activities. They write letters of recommendation. They are in need of alternate language coordination and translation at these polls. So, our students who are in dual language, bilingual households, or also perhaps some of our advanced students in the Spanish immersion program in the high school. If anyone is interested in this, I'd be happy to provide information. Reach out to me or reach out to the Lehigh County Office of Voter Registration. This program, they are happy to come out to individual classrooms in high schools or in districts or in community centers and train these kids and give them this opportunity. It's a great little, real world civics lesson and a wonderful way to involve kids. She said some of the best poll workers and most involved folks are the kids from our high schools. And I had no idea. And it's a paid position, and they will write your excuse for your civic project duty. And I just thought it was a wonderful opportunity. They have a whole program. They'll send people out to schools and classrooms and talk to kids and train them. And I just hadn't heard of it before, so I wanted to spread the word.
Thank you. Any visitor comments? Okay, so with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Very good.